minutes into 9 a.m. Central African time. Thank you very much for sticking around for the journal. In fact, you're just in time for us to unpack this week's Unfiltered Space. As per tradition, we come through with topics and conversations that hopefully will resonate with you every single Friday at this time of the day. So, estrangement is on the agenda today, okay, for Unfiltered Space. So estrangement, something that you can experience either from family or friends, and it is one of the most difficult relationships to navigate. So whether it follows years of conflict, a major disagreement, or just simply a sense of the relationship just no longer being healthy. Choosing distance can be one of those things that really come with a lot of complicated emotions, and difficult questions can arise from that. But what happens when the people we once considered a big part of our inner circle are no longer in our lives? How do we then explore what to do next? Well, we're going to explore those complexities in this segment and look at estrangement, the reasons that relationships reach this point, and how you can navigate life when connection, is no longer the way it is. When be choosing distance as a way forward. Let's unpack it. We've got Thobile Tops Mkhwanazi back on the show with us as a conversationalist and women advocate at Sisterhood Connect. Thobile, it's always such a pleasure. Welcome back.
Always such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, my sis. Good morning, great morning to all the Channel Africa listeners this morning. You're quite right. This is just such a sensitive, it is such a delicate, very heavy, incredibly real conversation. And I think the reality, is that estrangement is something that many people experience, but only a few people talk about it openly, right? Not being an expert, because I always say this, but really just speaking from my own human experience, things that I know, things that I've experienced, things that I've seen for myself. I think it is important that we have a conversation about this with a lot of grace, a lot of compassion, and just a lot of sensitivity, And I think as humans, growing up, often we grow up believing that family, and we grow up believing that friends are forever, and that true friendships really should be able to withstand anything. But the reality is that as we do life and we never arrive, right?
Yeah.
It unfolds that with time, some relationships, be it family, be it friends, they become hard. They become toxic. They become painful. They become unhealthy. They become draining, that it almost feels like distance and cutting them off is the safest thing to do. And sometimes we're doing it not because we want to punish the other person, but we're actually choosing ourselves. And we're actually choosing, our own well being and preserving ourselves. Because certain friendships and certain family relationships with time obviously cause hurt, they cause unmet expectations, broken trust, and just ongoing conflict. And it's not easy. And I always say that for me, when I look at life, I realize that one of the most difficult things about life is actually human relationships and human dynamics.
Yep.
It is constant work. But I think it's important to, explore the idea of why do these relationships get to this point and why do they break?
I think that is the thing. What is it that is going on that would lead to estrangement is a big question. Funny that we're having this conversation today. Just 2-3 nights ago, I saw a story about the famous American twins, Tia and Tamara. And people were like talking about them, and I mean, they were obviously child stars, very very close, based on the fact that they are twin sisters, but they were very close in their careers. They did things together. They had a reality show together, and there was a clip that resurfaced from years ago, was it months ago, where the one twin was being interviewed on one of these red carpets, and she was being asked, how's your sister doing? And she's like, oh no, I heard that she's got a new reality show, but I found out like everybody else on Twitter and on social media. And the gentleman then asks her, well, are you in this reality show? And she said, well, she didn't ask me, but I am really happy that she's out there and she's doing her thing. But I mean, obviously, she handled it with a lot of grace, but you can hear that they are no longer as close as they used to for whatever the reasons are, whether it's because they're
Yeah,
both married and have separate lives. But it happens. It happens with twin relationships, with men and women who were once romantically very close. But what do you think the reasons are? Because I think there's just such a variety of reasons why these things happen.
there's a variety of reasons, and I'm also realizing with what you're saying, I wasn't actually aware of the. I know Tamara and Tia,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
this story that you've just related. And it also just shows that there's different shapes and forms and levels and intensities
Hmm.
of separation, right? But I
Mm-hmm.
think really, really the essence of the kind of estrangement that we're talking about, we know that is a very deliberate act. We know that it's very intentional. We know that it's on purpose, whether it's cutting off, separating, that emotional
Mm.
quite right. Divorcing somebody that you thought you were going to spend the rest of your
Your
life
life
with.
with. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Again, when I look at my own experiences and what I know from family and from my own friendships, because again, my sis, I've said this, that sometimes we also must look at ourselves with accountability, and we must also look at ourselves sometimes as the villain, when people have had to block you or cut you off for whatever reason. But a lot of times, relationships do break down because of, number one, it could be just your value system. Some of us live according to a certain set of values. So maybe it could be a clashing of values, how you're living your life choices, your faith. It could be, we know this for a fact, betrayal of trust. We know that it could be just these ongoing, consistent patterns that we experience with somebody that are unhealthy and that we don't like. And at some point, we just get tired to deal with them.
Mm.
Sometimes this unresolved conflict. Not everybody comes from families where we can say, okay, this is the dilemma, this is what we're dealing with, let's have a meeting about it. A lot of people just brush things under the carpet. A lot of
Mm.
times people do things within. And when we do that, we don't realize that sooner or later it's unhealthy. We're
Mm.
going to sometimes it's emotional abuse. Not all abuse is physical. Sometimes it's emotional abuse. Of course, physical
Mm.
abuse. Sometimes it's lack of accountability. That is a huge value for us at Sisterhood Connect. That we must always be able, and I keep saying this, taking a look at the woman in the mirror, the man in the mirror, and being able to account when you have flawed, when you have done somebody wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe those weren't your intentions, but something landed badly, something happened. So it is important to take accountability. But if you're going to be in a relationship with somebody, any type of relationship, and they're unable to take accountability, you're going to get tired. And so there's so many reasons. And then listen to this. Sometimes it could be just one moment, an incident, one significant moment that just breaks everything. There's a
Mm.
quote,
Mm.
these are not words. There's a quote, and I've always said it for years. It takes years. It takes years to build trust,
Yeah.
but seconds to destroy it. Seconds to destroy it. And that is
Mm.
why relationships can break. Usually, though, when we get to a point of estrangement, from the research that I did as well, it almost feels like a final chapter or like a final season of a build up. It's not because what happened. You just had an argument. It's not because they didn't take accountability this one time, but you find that it's a build up of moments and incidences, and we all have thresholds, and you just cannot take it anymore.
That one moment, I think that is the scary part. It's the
Yeah.
fact that, as you mentioned, I mean, you and I could be best friends for 40 years, and then you decide you're going to, do something with my ex, and then that's it. That's it. You've broken an unspoken code of conduct. In fact, I wanted to take a break and then come back and look at that. Do we need to have a certain kind of spoken and unspoken code of conduct between two people? That will kind of govern how we navigate or help us navigate the difficulties of our dynamics. Is that one way to navigate or to kind of, sort of mitigate the chances of us getting into a space where we are estranged and we just no longer know each other on that level. But we continue conversations with Thobile Tops Mkhwanazi. Always just so wholesome having these conversations with her. We're back after this.
Call us on +27 63 406 9126 and contribute to the conversation. Keep Africa in your hands. Connect to our website for all your news, sports, and cultural updates. channelafrica.co.za. What endures lifetimes?
The one and only Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela.
Not titles or office.
This is to the transformation of Nelson Mandela Square in the next 20 years.
Not speeches or monuments. Ideals do.
Never and never again shall it be.
Across Africa, these ideals live on in communities and conversations about tomorrow, in choosing hope through hardship, unity over division, in the belief that freedom and dignity belongs to us all. Some legacies are not remembered, they are lived.
We should all bear in mind that the greatest glory of living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time you fall.
Celebrating Mandela Month on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Look closer, listen deeper. This is The Channel with Mateko Musito on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
23 minutes into 9 a.m. Welcome back as we unpack this week's unfiltered conversation with Thobile Tops Mkhwanazi, who is joining us as a conversationalist and women advocate at Sisterhood Connect. It's a wonderful platform where women gather and have and think together, and help one another navigate the world as we see it. Today, we really are unpacking something that is really tough: estrangement, whether it's between you and a friend or you and a family member. It is always a very, very difficult one. And as Thobile has already established, it is difficult to even put into words as to what exactly happened here, what is going on here. So we trying to navigate this alongside you. So any comments you have, you can drop us a line on our Facebook as we stream audiovisually. You're welcome to comment there, and we'll have a look at those a little bit later on. But Thobile, should you and I as besties have a code of conduct? Or if we're in a relationship, a romantic relationship, should there be a certain kind of spoken or unspoken code of conduct that will help us to navigate do's and don'ts? Because I think it is perhaps not a good idea for us to get into serious relationships of any kind without or assuming that you and I will consistently be on the same page.
Yeah, I think, look, the reality is that a lot of the things we experience as we are doing life, as we're figuring it out, we don't just get attracted to, anybody from a perspective, but also friendships,
Yeah.
There is almost like an attraction that is felt, that is seen, that is explored, and with time you get to know people. And I think where we get to refine and sharpen our relationships and our friendships with people is with time. It's in moments, it's with experiences, because I don't think when I even look at it from a friendship perspective, I don't think down with a friend say, yeah, so we want to be friends, so what is our code of conduct? Usually, with each other because of energy, you align because of maybe the way they carry themselves, things that you observe that you like about a person. But when you have incidences or encounters or moments, it's about then dealing with those moments. It's about then sitting with those moments to say, oh, so we've experienced this hurdle, we've experienced this moment, and in experiencing it, what does it mean for us? How do we build? How do we repair? I think with time, you get to see how do people fight? How do people show up? How do people repair? What are why is it important to honor those boundaries? So I do believe that that's something that we almost like explore and figure out with time. Obviously, with romantic relationships, a husband and a wife, it may be different, right?
Yes.
I'm not married as yet, but I know a lot of people do counseling or marital, what you call it, marital counseling or marital preparations.
Right.
When you go
Yeah.
And that's when you almost like kind of like cultivate what is our family ethos, what are our values, how will we be able to deal with certain things when they happen. But a lot of the times you can't, have conversations about that beforehand. You almost experience it as you are doing life. And for me, the important thing is then how do you then allow yourself to have moments when you can reflect on what has happened and how do we become better from this. And through those conversations, we're able to refine and cultivate the kind of relationship that speaks to you and that speaks to me and that honors the both of us so that it doesn't have to estrangement, because estrangement can be really horrible and difficult, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
sad and lonely, but at the same time, it can also be freeing. But do relationships have to get to that point? I do believe that as we're doing life, some people come into your life for a season. Some people are meant to be longer. So it's
Yeah,
about willing to work on what are we willing to fight. Sometimes you have to surrender. Sometimes you have to let people go.
yeah.
Sometimes you need distance and separation to then come back together to rebuild something and create something better and new for each other.
Yeah, definitely. There is power in surrendering. I have to agree with you on that. In that, perhaps another perspective to look at it is, why is this the best thing that could have happened to the both of us? Even though you do need to make room and time for you to grieve what was, because it is a moment and an opportunity to grieve, because the relationship is no longer as it used to be. But do you think modern ways and modern times are making relationships, or modern relationships possibly making estrangement more prevalent? I think that's a better way to ask it. Just the way we are, our exposure to social media, the illusion of options. This one is replaceable, or whatever it is. Do you think that our modern lives are really making it difficult for us to sustain long-term relationships and to repair our relationships?
You know what? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I'm not sure. That's a very good question and something to really take a look at. But I think for me, the best way to answer that is what I always say to myself is no matter what, some things are timeless, some things are valued. And we should not give too much power to the external. We should not give too much influence to the noise that's around us.
Yeah.
You character, who you are, your essence is something that cannot be influenced by the world. And it's about just taking a look at that woman in the mirror, connecting with yourself, and just also really cultivating the sentiment of gratitude. Know what you have whilst you have it. Know the people that you have whilst you have them, as opposed to, you don't know what you have until it's gone. Um, Different perspective. And I think for me, it's about being the kind of human being, no matter what, in all seasons, even in these times, do the right thing. What are your values? Take the responsibility that you need to take. You know, are you willing to grow? Are you willing to grow meaningfully? We're talking about that just last week.
Yeah.
And just yourself the honor that you need and other people. So perhaps yes, it can, but is that sustainable? Is that sustainable? Looking at the outside world and the influence that's changing. And I think for me, it's just about character building. And for me, that is timeless, regardless of the noise that's around us.
100%. That is coming from a solid woman who knows what's happening in the internal world. Thobile, thank you very much. Always just so awesome and so appreciated how generously you share this information. And it really is about us. I think what we've been able to do over the last several weeks is just show people that they should be comfortable with having these types of conversations. And if you get nothing else but that, then I'm very happy. Thank you always for your time. Hey.
Always such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thobile Tops Mkhwanazi, coming to you as a conversationalist and woman advocate at Sisterhood Connect, navigating a tough one. It's a tough one. And would like for us to continue this conversation with you on our social media spaces. So do throw in some commentary there and we'll get to it a little bit later on. Right now, though, 9:31, we say a very good morning to Figile Lingwati, who's standing by with the latest in sports.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of